achieved.
Right now, we're only looking to sign top 5 guys. That's a rough repurposement or, reinterpretation of what Dana White said with regard to Benson Henderson signing in Bellator today. And, to me, that sounds like the dude that asked this chick out to the prom, and she says no, and he goes, yeah, screw you, I didn't want to take you to the prom anyway, you're only a 6. That just, he's a former champion, he's making waves welterweight, he can fight in 2 divisions, he's an entertaining fighter, he's a good fighter. I know some people aren't the biggest fan of Benson Henderson, nonetheless, he's a top-level fighter, and he has jumped ship, and he's openly pointed the finger at Reebok and said the sponsorship aspect played a big role in his decision. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 82, renamed from UFC 196. This card takes place on February 6th. Features now 6 main card fights, which I will give you predictions for. All of the 6 preliminary breakdowns will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm coming off UFC on Fox 18, where I went 6-6. It was kind of a disappointing night. I went 6-6, but if you look at my bet packs, I still picked up, I think it was 56, not quite 57 units. So it wasn't a massive profit. It was about 20, 25 units in profit. But considering I've had, 2 so-so shows, and one I made basically broke even, the other one I made money on, that shows you that despite the fact you don't have to get predictions right all the time to still make money. If you go through, I had a lot of fights that I got wrong where I said, betting on this fight, not the best option. Take the line or avoid the fight altogether. For example, Sage Northcutt, I said, don't touch that fight whatsoever. And on top of that, I said, if you're going to play it as a prop, bet the over, which was a perfect prediction. And for Sage Northcutt, I feel terrible for the guy, even though, he quit. His kid's 19, he's very green, he's got a long way to go. It was too much too soon. It was a bigger, thumb in the eye of, again, Dana White and company for promoting this kid and putting him in a position where eventually he would probably fail because he wasn't going to smash through opponent after opponent after opponent. And Brian Barberine is a tough dude, plus it was short notice, so, a big change up on both sides. Nonetheless, tough for Sage. I'm sure Sage Northcutt will come back. Every fighter needs to lose at least once to help them rebuild, retool, and become back a better competitor. Going back to the Benson Henderson scenario, very interesting scenario. I would love to see if Aljamain Sterling and Alistair Overeem, all 3 of them made the jump along with Benson Henderson over to Bellator, and suddenly it opens the door to the UFC needing to do something. No longer can Dana White stand there and say, we're the biggest organization, you don't like it, you go elsewhere, because you got guys going elsewhere, and the numbers start to pile up. Suddenly, people start to question, are you the biggest organization in the world? Yeah, they're still going to be for a while at least anyway, but fighters will look at other alternatives and say, hey, Bellator ain't a bad place to go. Josh Thompson's there, Phil Davis is there, Benson Henderson's there, a number of Bellator's homegrown superstars are there. It looks like it's going to give us some options to go and make some money. Nonetheless, I'll get to my predictions in a second. Consider buying the bet packs, $10. Again, we're having success. Sometimes it's not always the biggest success. We're still doing our best to move forward and have a good night. There were a couple rough fights in the last show up, but still, stick with me if you're buying the bet packs on a week-to-week basis. It will come. The big shows will come. I'm looking forward to breaking these fights down for you, so let's get to that first main card prediction. The opening fight of the night takes place in the UFC welterweight division as longtime veteran Mike Quicksand Pyle, with a record of 26 wins, 11 losses, and 1 draw, takes on Sean Spencer with a current record of 12 wins and 1 defeat. Now, looking at this match, we have 2 fighters that are very much headed in opposite directions. You have Pyle, who's a longtime veteran. He's at the end of his run. He's currently in a kind of a slump with 1 win in his last 4 fights, versus Sean Spencer, who's kind of hitting his stride. He's 3-2 since moving to welterweight with a couple of very close split decision losses, including the BS loss to Cathal Pendred, and he's kind of at his physical peak. He's coming to this fight after a bit of a layoff. He's been out for just over a year. But for Pyle, his activity has dropped off. He fought just once in 2015, twice in 2014. Prior to that, he had a lot of years of 2 and 3 fight years, much more active, much less space between matchups. Again, should to be expected at the end of his career. For Pyle, he'll be 2 inches taller. Spencer will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and he is 12 years younger than his opponent. Big experience advantage, though, for Mike Pyle. 38 total fights at just 16 for his opponent. Now, for Sean Spencer, he comes in primarily from a boxing background, but he only has a pair of wins by knockout. He is 8-2 in the scorecards, and he's 2-2 in fights ended by submission. For Mike Pyle, BJJ black belt, 16 wins by tap out, 4-2 in decisions, and 6 wins by knockout, but he's been knocked out 5 times, which is a big glaring number when you look at the overall records on both sides. 4 of his last 5 losses have also come by knockout, but also 4 of his last 5 wins have come by knockout, so you kind of see a progression on both sides of the coin, which usually you don't see this late in a fighter's career. Now for Spencer, he's a high volume striker. He averages 4.96 strikes landed per minute, but he also gets hit a lot, averaging 3.9 strikes absorbed per minute. So he is getting the edge there, but it's not by as much as you would like. Not a ton of power, but he did hurt Cavalcante. He did hurt Paulo Thiago when he tagged him with a solid right hand. He's a very fluid striker, good movement, good footwork overall. He does a decent job of putting his strikes together. He throws a nice left jab. He'll double and triple it up. Not a ton of kicks. Look for him to throw a nice 1-1-2. Flip out that jab twice and then come with a big overhand right. For Pyle, his striking, as I mentioned, is improving. He's really found his power stride here in the latter part of his competitive years. Good right hand. He moves very well. He'll throw more kicks than Spencer, which is an area he should be able to take advantage of if he can keep him at range. But the big advantage that Mike Pyle will have in this fight is he is exceptionally strong on the mat and in the clinch position, especially if he get his opponent pinned along the cage. When you look at Spencer, in his 3 UFC wins, he gave up a grand total of 1 takedown. In his 3 UFC losses, he was taken down 16 times. So you see the importance for this young fighter for his takedown defense and his ability to stay on his feet. When he fought Cavalcante, he was routinely getting his back pushed into the cage. He showed good balance, but he eventually was taken down again. He likes to scoot, get back up, but again, he's being taken down, taken out of his comfort zone. That's not a good thing. He also has shown some issues with creating separation against Paulo Thiago, against Gall, against even going all the way back to Yuri Villafort. He was getting pinned on the cage, tied up in the clinch. That's not a good position for a guy who wants to box. When he fought Cavalcante, his activity wasn't enough to separate from the fact that he was getting taken down and pushed into the cage a lot, and Gall was still landing strikes. When you look at Pyle, he scored a couple of knockouts from the clinch position, using that tie clinch and landing knees and elbows in close. He'll also attack off the break, which can be a very effective tool in this fight. He also does some of his best takedowns from that position. Nice trip takedown. He'll also go for that body lock, trip combination. And once he hits the mat, he starts advancing. He's not going to let Spencer scoot his hips out and get back to his vertical base. He starts advancing and looking for opportunities to set up submissions. He has a smothering top game. He knows how to move, very tight body control. Like I said, he passes that guard exceptionally well, looks for submissions, does damage with his ground and pound. I think the threat of the takedown is going to slow Sean Spencer down. Again, when you compare his 2 fights, when there was the threat of the takedown, he was outlanded 177 to 119. In the 3 wins, where there wasn't the threat of the takedown, he had 267 strikes for, only 166 strikes against. So again, I know some of those numbers are skewed by him spending time on his back, but you get the gist of my argument here. Pyle's chin is a major concern, and while Spencer has hurt opponents, he does not have the big knockout numbers to suggest he can really do damage to Mike Pyle when you compare with the guys that knocked out Pyle. Mean, Brown, McDonald, Jake Ellenberger. Massive punching power. The mold for beating Mike Pyle so far has been big power strikers and or power wrestling. Spencer doesn't seem to have either one of those areas. I think Pyle will do damage in the clinch. He stays busy. He scores takedowns. He'll hold position while staying very active on the top. I think he'll limit Spencer's time and success at range, and my prediction is Mike Pyle to defeat Sean Spencer by decision. While a submission could be possible, I have Pyle by decision. Prediction number 2 is in the UFC's light heavyweight division, as Misha Cirkunov, born in Latvia, raised and competing in Canada, comes in with a record of 10 wins and 2 losses, taking on the debuting Alex the Spartan Nicholson, one of 2 fighters in this card with the nickname the Spartan, joining Alex White on the prelims. Nicholson comes in with a professional record of 6 wins and 1 loss. Now, this is a big opportunity for both men, moving from the prelims to the main card, considering this is Cirkunov's second career fight for Nicholson, or second UFC fight for Nicholson. This is his first opportunity to fight in the UFC, so a big opportunity to shine on the big stage. Now, both guys are very early in their MMA career. Cirkunov just 12 pro fights, Nicholson 7 overall. The new guy, 1 inch taller, 3 years younger than his Latvian-Canadian counterpart. Now, Cirkunov, a judo black belt, wrestling and BJJ background as well. 4 wins by TKO or knockout, 4 wins by submission, including 3 by armbar. All coming in round 1. He's 2-0 in decision. He has 2 losses by submission as well, a little bit earlier in his career. For Nicholson, he has 5 wins by knockout and 1 win by submission. 5 of those 6 wins came in the first round. His 1 loss coming in a fight that went the distance. The longest fight he's ever been in that he actually won lasted to the minute 34 mark of round number 2. Now, for Nicholson, he doesn't appear to have a lot of major pre-MMA combat training, but he's a very big, athletic man, and he's beaten some... They're regional guys, but they're decent regional guys. At least they beat the Cans. They had a combined record of 21-5 the last 3 guys he fought. So they're not. He's not smashing guys with below 500 records. When you see Nicholson fighting, he throws a lot. He throws some spinning attacks, knees, spinning back fists, and elbows. He does a decent job of striking at range. He does tend to lift his chin up when he is attacking, and he does this little hop thing when he comes forward, which at this level, guys are going to smash you or take you down when you do that. So hopefully, for his sake, he eliminates that from his game. Now, in the clinch and in grappling situations, he struggles to create separation. It's really not a strong point of his. In all the action I saw of him pre-UFC, he was taken down in those fights. Able to get back up multiple times, but he didn't look good on his back when he was there, and this is against lower-level opposition. For Cirkunov, when striking, he throws very hard strikes, but he's still working to improve his distance game. He did stop former UFC fighter Rodney Wallace with a head kick in that matchup, but still, it's not his greatest asset. What is his greatest asset? It's a very good asset, exceptional, if you will, is his clinch fighting. He's exceptionally strong in the position, very strong physically and very strong technically. Nice throws and trips. In his last fight against Johny, he was able to pick up a nice trip and move right into full mount prior to eventually finishing that fight. Once on the ground, look for him to pass guard. He's very good on top. Good back mount. He'll rotate to back. When he fought Johny, once he got on top, he unloaded with conservative but still heavy strikes. Didn't want to blow his gas tank out and eventually open up the position until the referee was, or open up the strikes until the referee was forced to stop it. Now, he has been known at times to give up position for submission. At one point, he did make a mistake in that fight. He had standing back control and he kind of leapt up on his opponent, got shook off, wound up on his back. And in that fight, he was able to get out of it. But again, you want to clean those things up at this level of competition. Now, neither guy has a lot of experience in longer fights. And it could turn into a bit of a crapshoot if we do get into the second half of this matchup. That's a big if, though. For my money, Cirkunov has the much more superior skill set. And Nicholson appears to be vulnerable in the type of attack that Misha is going to bring into this fight. For Nicholson, he has to take advantage of his time spent at range and unload, hurt him coming in, possibly knock him out, at least back him off. I don't think he's going to get a lot of opportunities to do that, though. As soon as they clinch, Misha's going to drag him to the mat. He's going to move to a dominant position, chip away with strikes, and if a submission presents itself, he will go for it, or obviously keep unloading with strikes. And my prediction is Misha Cirkunov to defeat, first name is leading me, Alex Nicholson by TKO. From the light heavyweights all the way down to the flyweights. Number one contender, top-ranked Joseph Benavidez with a current record of 23 wins and 4 losses, takes on 8th-ranked Zach Fun-Size Makovsky with a record of 19 wins and 6 defeats. Now, Benavidez is trying to hold on to his top spot. He's fought the champion twice. He's lost twice. If he's ever get a shot at the champion or get an opportunity to fight the title, should the champion be defeated or vacate the title, he needs to hold on to the spot. So far, he is 8-0 when fighting guys not named Mighty Mouse Johnson. That is, at flyweight, that is darn impressive. He has won 4 times since his last fight against Johnson where he got knocked out. For Makovsky, if he can beat Joseph Benavidez, that gets him right back into the title hunt and picks him up after he's coming off a loss, picks him right back up and gets him going. He has only 2 UFC losses against John Dodson and Juicy Formiga, so top of the pack guys when you're looking in this division. Both guys will stand 5'4". Benavidez will have a 1-inch reach advantage. He also happens to be 1 year younger. Both guys have a lot of experience, have fought good competition over their careers. Now, Benavidez, he comes from that wrestling background. He's a Team Alpha male guy. 9 wins by submission, never been tapped out. 6-1 when it comes to winning fights by knockout. 8-3 on the scorecards. And when you look at his 4 career losses, 2 to Demetrius Johnson, 2 to Dominic Cruz. Those are 2 elite guys. If you're going to lose to, you might as well lose to those guys. For Zach Makovsky, NCAA Division I wrestler, BJJ purple belt, also training out of TriStar over his last couple fights. 6-3 in fights ended by submission, 12-3 on the scorecards, 1-0 in fights ended by knockout. And again, you look at some of the guys he's lost to: John Dodson, Formiga, I already mentioned, Eduardo Dantes from Bellator, also Wilson Hayes, we just saw beat Ortiz in his last matchup. So a sizable quality of opponents that he has lost to as well. Now, for Benavidez, he has a big strikes landed per minute advantage, 1.36 more strikes than Makovsky, and that's a big advantage. He also gets hit more, but he still has the statistical advantage when you compare those numbers. For Makovsky, he has the wrestling advantage overall, 3.6 takedowns at a 32% completion rate. For Joseph Benavidez, he averages just 1.3 takedowns at a 29% completion rate, but the key to his success probably in this fight will come down to his takedown defense, which so far ranks in at 60%. Now, Benavidez has been taken down before in fights. Timothy Elliott put him on his back 3 times. Dustin Ortiz took him down twice. Demetrius Johnson took him down 5 times. With Benavidez not being taken down, it's his ability to get back to his feet. He's an excellent scrambler. And, when Ali Bogatinov tried to take him down, he was able to land partial takedowns, if you will, and Benavidez, boom, like a spring, hopped right back up and nullified anything that he would have gained in that position. When you look at Makovsky, takedowns are key to his success. 17 takedowns in his 3 UFC wins compared to just 1 landed in his 2 UFC losses. When he fought Formiga, he was able to, get the fight to the ground, but was continually losing the scrambles, and that's something, losing position, that's something you can't afford to do if your success hinges on taking the fight to the ground and being successful. When he does get in on guys, he has some pretty good takedown technique, nice big slams. He changes levels exceptionally quickly. Struggled to keep Timothy Elliott on the mat once they got there. And he was taken down by John Dodson as well. Dodson defended the takedowns, kind of turned the table on him, said, look what I can do to you. If this fight is contested on the feet, Makovsky is not a fish out of the water by any stretch of the imagination. He keeps his hands up very tight, shoulders up, giving that shield, chin down. Not a ton of volume, though. He has a nice left hand, drops levels to set it up. Very clean. He can counter-strike as well. Look for inside leg kicks, inside kicks, body kicks, and head kicks as well. A little jumble, but I'm picking up there. Was mixing up his strikes and takedowns in previous fights, which can be, very effective technique, keep his opponents guessing. But again, his volume is an issue. He needs to throw more. He has a tendency to stand directly in front of his opponents where he is right there to be hit and to be attacked, and it kind of makes his attack look very recognizable. For Benavidez, he does like to rush forward behind his strikes. Lots of movement. He's changing stances more, trying to be a little more elusive, kind of take from the guy who's beat him twice in this division. A lot of head movement and fakes to try and keep his opponents guessing. Before he comes in, deception to set up those punches, which is very effective. He steps in with a big overhand right. He will go to the head kick, low kick. He'll also come to the body with a very straight up and down kick that has the ability to clip an opponent's chin if they are ducking down or possibly shooting for a takedown. I like the way he pushes forward for a takedown. And if he's not going to get it, he'll snap out a right hand really quick while his opponent's working on grappling defense, which also a very effective technique. When Makovsky fought Timothy Elliott described him as kind of a very A to B linear type fighter where, he does this and then he does this and you know exactly what he's going to do, and that can, keep your opponent from, keeps them from being thrown off by your attacks. For Makovsky, he needs to push Benavidez. We saw him slow down against Dustin Ortiz, but again, I don't think the volume is there, and I don't think the power from Makovsky is there to back him off either. I think, Joe, he's difficult to take down. He's harder to keep down, and it'll take away a key element of Makovsky's attack. Watch for Joe Benavidez to look for submission attempts on failed attempts. Most likely, he will more likely look to disengage, but I think Benavidez outworks him on the feet, lands more strikes, has the greater impact with those strikes, more variety overall, shows good takedown defense, might even land his own takedown, and my prediction is Joseph Benavidez to defeat Zach Makovsky by decision. The fourth fight on our main card takes place in the UFC's light heavyweight division. Is the 6th-ranked Ovince St. Preux, 18-7-0. Battles the former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, 13th-ranked Rafael Feijao Cavalcante, with a current record of 12 wins, 6 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, this is a battle between two former Strikeforce guys. As I mentioned, Feijao was the former champ, and OSP was probably one of the most active light heavyweights on the roster near the end of the organization's run. Now, for St. Preux, he is coming off a very difficult loss to Glover Teixeira. He had won 2 in a row prior to that, and he's won 6 of 8 fights in the UFC, and of his last 8 victories, 7 of them have come by stoppage. For Feijao, he has lost 2 in a row in 3 of his last 4. His only UFC victory coming over Igor Prokrayets, and since losing the Strikeforce title to Dan Henderson, included in that, he has 2 wins, 4 losses, and has a no contest, which I believe was against Mike Pyle, where he won by submission but tested positive and lost the fight as a result, or no contest as a result. They do have a couple common opponents, Ryan Bader, both guys lost to them. They both fought Patrick Cummins. OSP stopped him. Feijao got stopped by him. Physically, OSP 2 inches taller, 7-inch reach advantage, big reach advantage there. He's also 3 years younger. He's also been much more active in recent years. Total of 8 fights for OSP since 2013. For Feijao, just 4 fights. He's coming off a fairly, not a super long layoff, but still it's shorter for him compared to some of his other layoffs he's experienced of late. For St. Preux, BJJ Blue Belt, 9 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He is 4-5 when going the distance, which is a little bit concerning. He has lost once each by knockout and submission. For Feijao, BJJ Black Belt, 11 wins by knockout. That's his big moneymaker. He's got big-time power, but he's also been knocked out 4 times. He has 1 submission on his record, 0-1 when going the distance, and he also has a loss by disqualification. Looking at Feijao, I said big power, but again, he really hasn't looked to be the same fighter since losing his title. He had a nice run leading up to a Strikeforce title shot against King Mo, has not looked the same since he dropped the title. His cardio has been very poor, especially in the UFC, and his takedown defense, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's gotten worse. When you're tired, it's harder to stay on your feet. And also his fight IQ really raises some eyebrows, I guess, mine included. Against Patrick Cummins, he threw a big wheel kick right off the bat. Cummins ducked it and went for a takedown. It's like, why are you throwing these big high-risk maneuvers right off the bat against a guy you know is going to shoot on you? Just hand him the takedown then. There you go. He tends to overextend a lot on his strikes. Not a ton of volume. Swings big. Obviously, if it hits, great. If it doesn't, it's a negative gain. But when he fought Cummins, he did big-time damage with minimal opportunities. He only cracked him a couple times and had Cummins' face was like hamburger by the end of that matchup. Feijao has big-time power in his right hand. He'll also throw a big uppercut, flips out that left jab, nice stepping knee, a lot of spinning attacks as well. Look for him to attack on the break if they do clinch up. Throw those spinning attacks from that position. And when he stopped Preux, it was for the tie clinch and landed a lot of knees and eventually finished him off with punches. Now, when he fought Patrick Cummins, he had a lot of success fending off takedowns early on. Stayed vertical, but eventually was taken down and worn out and eventually finished. What he does to defend takedowns, which can be effective in the short term, is he likes to flip over, get right to his knees once his opponent commits to the takedown and allows him to spring back up. It can tire him out, though, with excessive attempts at doing this and force him to do this multiple times. OSP is not nearly as good a wrestler as Patrick Cummins or Ryan Bader, but I anticipate he's going to look to take this fight to the floor at some point in time. Now, what St. Preux does well, he has very good kicks. Front kick, back power left kick to the body as well. He hurt Glover Teixeira with it. Let's just lifted him right off his feet when he cracked him with it early in that matchup. He throws a nice straight left. He'll also come with a left jab. Look for him to work in a knee to the body. He had a counter left hand that put Shogun down. He also landed a counter uppercut to knock out Patrick Cummins, so a lot of his power comes from his left side. He does a pretty good job of slipping out of range and cracking a guy, and that's where the reach comes into play as well. He can catch guys coming forward. Big thing with him, his cardio is not that great either. He does tend to try and fight relaxed, but his hands are low. His guard tends to drop when he's attacking, and that leaves him open, but he's doing it to avoid really overexerting himself. But against Cummins, he still started tiring before the first round was done, and his technique got very sloppy. He throws lots of single strikes. Ryan Jimmo had success cracking him a couple times in close range. Now, for OSP's wrestling, he did shoot on Jimmo from far out, powered him down to the mat. His submission game, once he gets on top, he's very strong. His submission game is also very good. Now, here's some numbers I'm going to throw at you. Try and keep up here. OSP, his last 3 losses, he's given up a combined 18 takedowns. In his last 12 wins, he's given up a grand total of 2 takedowns. So you see the scenario there. He's also landed 10 takedowns in those 12 victories. So it's the yin and the yang there. For Feijao, in his last 9 fights, he's scored a grand total of 1 takedown. Conversely, he's been taken down 20 times. So you see where we're going with your both these guys lose when their opponents take them down. OSP is the only guy of the two that's actually showing consistent ability to take opponents down. But OSP has to be careful when trading with Feijao. Cavalcante is the better striker with power and technique, but he needs to score that knockout, and he needs to score it in the first round. In the last 4 fights for Feijao to go beyond the opening round, he is 1-3. And keep in mind, Thiago Silva hurt him with a big body shot, and it was all downhill from them, really took him out of that fight. OSP doesn't have great cardio, but it still should be better than Feijao's. He needs to use his size to lean on him, grind him down, force him to carry his weight. Feijao has to do damage in that opening round, or look for him to try and, on a lazy submission attempt, or a takedown attempt, look for him to try and lock up that guillotine, go for a submission. But his window for victory starts to close after the first round, or even sooner if he starts to tire. And my prediction is Ovince St. Preux to eventually just wear him out on the ground. OSP defeats Rafael Feijao by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, it's the UFC's heavyweights as the 11th ranked Roy Big Country Nelson, 21 wins and 12 losses, taking on another big man, the 12th ranked Jared Big Show Rosholt with a record of 14 wins and 2 defeats. Now, Rosholt's put together a nice little run. 3 consecutive victories. He's 6-1 in 7 UFC fights, and he's coming off the biggest win of his UFC career, of his overall career, when defeating Stefan Struve. For Roy Nelson, other end of the spectrum. He has lost 3 consecutive bouts coming into this fight, but he's fought far better competition. In this current losing streak, losses to Josh Barnett, Alistair Overeem, and Mark Hunt. He's 1-5 in his last 6 fights, his only win coming over Big Nog. He also has losses to Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. See what caliber of opponent Roy Nelson has been fighting. These guys, a couple of them already fought Stefan Struve, the biggest name Rosholt has on his record, and destroyed him. So that gives you an idea of where these two guys have been at. I'm not saying Rosholt can't win this fight, I'm just saying that's by comparison. Take a look at their competition. Physically, Rosholt 2 inches taller. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage. He also happens to be 10 years younger, as Nelson is pushing 40. I believe he is 40 now. They will be close to the same weight on fight day as well. For Nelson, he is a knockout artist. 14 of his 20 wins have come by knockout. He is 2-10 on the scorecards. Those are some big numbers. And he is 1-11 in his last 12 fights to go beyond the opening round. So keep that in mind. You want to talk about a window slamming shut after 5 minutes. That window is slammed shut, and the staple or the nail gun comes out, and it's tacked in about 47 times. 8 of his last 9 wins have come in the first round, and they have come by knockout. The only one not in that span was his TKO finish of Mirko Cro Cop, which I believe came in the 3rd round. Looking at Rosholt, he's a grinding NCAA Division I wrestler. 7-0 in the scorecards, 3-0 in fights ended by submission, 4 wins by knockout, but he's also been knocked out 2 times. For Rosholt, he's a grinder. He breaks guys down in the clinch and on the mat. When he fought Josh Copeland, he scored a TKO with his top position pressure and strikes. Eventually, he just could not take anymore. Still, I'm not 100% sold on his MMA wrestling. He's averaged just 2.13 takedowns at a 44% completion rate, which is not consistent enough for a guy who needs to lean so heavily on his wrestling. He's coming off his best wrestling performance against Stefan Struve, where he was able to land 4 takedowns. Prior to that, Daniel Omianchuk, he took down 3 times. Prior to that, he didn't take anybody down more than twice in a fight. And, that's not enough, considering he's not smashing guys and putting them away in most scenarios. If he doesn't take guys down, he tends to rely a lot on clinch fighting, where he is relatively effective from. He forces opponents to carry his weight, lands short strikes, uppercuts, eventually can lead to takedowns, but really wears them out in that position. He will brawl and swing wildly. He likes to throw at range and work his way into the clinch position, but he does leave his chin up and exposed. Two losses by knockout, and Timmy Johnson almost knocked him out in the final moments of that matchup as well. For Nelson, he's never been submitted. He's a BJJ black belt, but he has had some issues on the mat. But looking at the back of the Josh Barnett fight, he didn't get taken down once, and he landed 4 takedowns on Barnett, who just got submitted by Ben Rothwell. Mind blown in that situation there, by the way. Cormier landed 3 takedowns. Frank Mir took him down 6 times, where guys are able to exploit Roy Nelson's takedown defense. He also had issues fighting guys in the clinch where they are able to wear him down. But again, a lot of times he's fighting very big heavyweights who are able to really lean on him and wear on him. And that's, Rosholt's capable of that as well. But again, doesn't have the huge physical advantages that other fighters do. For Nelson, where his advantage lies, he has face-melting power, that big overhand right. He has power in all his hands. He stopped Mitchell with a brutal uppercut. He likes to throw a looping left and come with a straight right to catch his opponents off guard. He likes that really low stance, step-in right hand. He puts his back against the cage when his opponent is backing up and starts to fire, mixing an uppercut as well. He has knocked out fighters that are bigger and more athletic and more diverse strikers that should be able to stay away from him, and he stopped a number of those guys. Where he struggled was against guys like Stipe Miocic and Fabricio Verdum, who were diverse, used a lot of movement, a lot of footwork, and avoided his big bombs, got the fight into deeper waters, and took over. For Rosholt, he was getting cracked at range by Timothy Johnson in that matchup. He was coming forward and throwing bombs, and Johnson was coming forward and throwing bombs and having a lot of success. Rosholt will slow down in fights. Keep that in mind. He was exhausted against Timothy Johnson late. He lowers his hands. His head is exposed. And Johnson, as I said, hurt him. Another couple minutes, he probably would have finished him. And looking at Roy Nelson, he almost finished Alistair Overeem in the 3rd round of that fight. He was still firing in rounds 2 and 3 against Josh Barnett and in rounds 4 and 5. For Rosholt, he needs to grind on Nelson for the full 3 rounds. Close that gap, lean on him, drag him to the mat if possible. That is difficult. Nelson's a big man to move around, and once Rosholt closes the gap, he's in Nelson's firing range. I think Nelson is going to have a lot of success holding that, Rosholt from having that wrestling success and taking him down. It's going to force Rosholt to slow down as well, becomes much more hittable. I think either Nelson catches him early as he comes in, or he bucks that trend of not winning fights that go longer, hurts and finishes Rosholt late in the fight. And my prediction is Big Country Roy Nelson to defeat Jared Rosholt by knockout. We move now to what is now the new main event of the night, as welterweights number 2 ranked former champion Johny Big Rig Hendricks returns to action with a current record of 17 wins and 3 losses. He meets the 8th ranked Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with a current record of 11 wins and just 1 defeat. For Hendricks, he's trying to get back into the mix, get it back and get that title shot against Robbie Lawler or whoever happens to hold the title at the time. For Wonderboy Thompson, he's trying to climb towards that opportunity. He's not got there. This win would certainly put him on the cusp of a shot at the title. It would be a huge victory for him. For Hendricks, he has not fought for 11 months. He was unfortunately pulled out of UFC 192 with some weight-cutting issues. And this is a 5-round fight. We have seen some issues with him going 5 rounds and slowing down, which we'll talk about momentarily. Now, Hendricks, he is coming off a win over Matt Brown, another high-level guy, a guy who happens to hold a victory over Stephen Thompson very early in his UFC career. He only has the last 2 losses in his 10 fights. The only 2 losses he has in his last 10 fights came against Robbie Lawler and George St. Pierre in very close and questionable decisions. Nonetheless, 2 high-caliber guys. For Thompson, he's won 5 in a row since his loss to Matt Brown. He's increased the quality of competition every time he's gone out there, including his recent win over Jake Ellenberger. A Wonderboy is 3 inches taller. He'll also have a sizable 6-inch reach advantage. I wanted to look up the leg reach advantage. The UFC has them both listed at 0, so this is going to be a weird fight because neither guy has legs. For Thompson, 6 wins by knockout, including Jake Ellenberger, Whitaker, Chris Clements, so some nice names there. For Hendricks, 8 wins by knockout, Martin Kampman and John Fitch, the 2 most recent guys that he was able to put away. For Thompson, we all know karate stance. He's got great karate background. Switches stances up, holds his hands very low though, but he's incredibly quick. He'll leap in. He's exceptionally hard to time. He manages distance very well. Fights much longer because of those leg kicks. That's why I wanted to look that up. And throws and attacks from a variety of angles that really throws his opponents off. Lots of kicking techniques. He'll throw that back power kick, front leg kicks as well, spinning kicks. He took out Jake Ellenberger with a couple of spinning back kicks that both landed on the chin eventually. One chin, one face that put him down, which were very impressive. He throws a lot of single punches when he's striking and move away. Nice straight left, quick jab as well. Right hand dropped both Patrick Cote and Robert Whittaker, so a very effective maneuver. He was dropped by a right hand of Jake Ellenberger, so it's like, his chin has been tested. It held up for the most part, but the thing with Johny Hendricks, if he lands one shot on you, that's probably it for the night in most scenarios, unless you're, like we saw George St. Pierre or, some of the, a guy like Robbie Lawler, who also has a big-time chin. For Hendricks, the big number... looking at Hendricks, his striking has really improved. He's thrown much more slick multi-punch combinations, good leg kicks as well, which he'll work in with his strikes. His volume has picked up. But the big thing is he can't trade and certainly can't stand at range for a prolonged period of time with Stephen Thompson because you're working directly into the best aspect of his attack. Where Hendricks shines, he's got a great wrestling background, 9 takedowns in the Matt Brown victory, 7 in the 2 fights versus Robbie Lawler. He took George St. Pierre down twice. He landed 12 takedowns against Carlos Condit. He can take guys down, he can grind them out, break them down, and wear them out, and that's what I expect him to try and do here against Stephen Thompson. Thompson, he was taken down by Jake Ellenberger for a very brief moment. He showed exceptionally strong hips and was able to actually counter who was into a superior position. Cote wasn't able to take him down when he fought Thompson, but he was able to get in on his legs. If Hendricks gets a hold of him, you are going for a ride. We saw him slam a number of opponents. He's so strong, and his technique is so good. Can Johny Hendricks keep it going for 5 rounds? We've seen him fade and slow down in the later rounds of fights. Other question is, can Thompson hold up in those scenarios as well? We did see, again, it's a whole other lifetime ago, but Matt Brown used a lot of takedowns and really broke Stephen Thompson down when he defeated him, wore him out, took away his striking effectiveness. That was an upset act call, by the way, toot my own horn, toodaloo. Eventually took away his striking effectiveness by basically making him fatigued and not allowing him to really work his kicking game. Hendricks has gone 5 rounds 3 times, so he knows what it's like. Thompson has never gone. He's gone 3 rounds 5 times, but those extra 2 rounds are a big deal. But most of his fights, again, he's able to fight at his own pace. And if Hendricks wrestles him and doesn't allow him to fight at his own pace, if he can take him down, that's really going to take him out of his comfort zone. The biggest concern for Hendricks is closing that gap. He has a short reach, and the legs of Thompson are going to make that gap longer. And if he can counter Hendricks coming in, he could certainly hurt him, back him off, and take him out of his game, even finish him. The other thing is, can Thompson kick with the threat of the takedowns? If he can't kick because he's afraid of Johny Hendricks taking him down, that takes away one of his biggest attributes. For Johny, I think what ultimately happens here, he's going to stand with him. He will keep in close at boxing range like he fought Robbie Lawler, right in tight, takes away the kicks a little bit. It leads him into, kick and then score a takedown, in the background of throwing that punch or kick, and he will mix up his attack much better. I think we'll see Thompson ultimately slow down. That wrestling will remain a constant for Johny Hendricks through 5 rounds. It's not going to be a huge, awesome performance. If he knocks him out, great, but my prediction is Johny Hendricks to defeat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by decision. So those are my 6 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC Fight Night 82. I believe it was renamed with all the scrambling about it. And it is a 5-round main event, keep that in mind. 6 preliminary predictions, all available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You'll also be able to vote on this one because I had the polls posted because it was going to be a pay-per-view. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore, so you can still go in and vote, so make sure you do that. But certainly consider buying the bet packs with my DraftKings breakdowns, all of my fight breakdowns. I try and steer people away from certain fights, which has been effective. I show them, maybe a side bet here isn't the best option, but certainly here's a prop bet that has can work out. At the same time, I can be absolutely batshit crazy and get something wrong as well. Let's be realistic, folks. No one is perfect, and I certainly don't claim to be that. I do love the fact, I got this the other day, going through my email, and I got a YouTube notification from a gentleman who posted on my Ronda Rousey Holly Holm picture, but I need to stop doing predictions because I picked Ronda Rousey to defeat Holly Holm, and he knew all along that Holly Holm was going to take her out. He knew 10 years ago that Holly Holm was going to come in and take out Ronda Rousey, which is ridiculous. Nonetheless, I love when it's one thing to come the day after a fight happened, like I knew that was going to happen, but to come almost 2-3 months after and say you're a dumbass. I got a good chuckle. Moving on. Also, follow me on Twitter. I try as much as possible to post but events do happen to fall into some family time, so sometimes I can't always post for every fight. So if I disappear, that is why. Nonetheless, follow me on Twitter. I believe I'm at KO_predictions. Facebook, like my page as well. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as I'm hoping will happen this weekend, as we always do, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully the judges are with us. And take care, guys. Until next time.